I'd crashed hard 3 times in half a year. Each time I swore the bottom was solid, the ground crumbled again. Got laid off from the sawmill when they replaced men with machines. Lost the trailer 14 days later. Lost the last scraps of my dignity when I dragged my duffel bag back to my aunt's spare room in Cotter at 28. Slept under a tin roof that dripped every storm while she reminded me, gentle but relentless, that a grown man ought to have more to show for himself. So when I spotted the notice pinned to the bulletin board inside the Piggly Wiggly, night watchman needed, Raven's Hollow graveyard, cash paid, I didn't waste time wondering. I dialed the number. A voice like gravel over broken glass told me to meet a man called Jasper Crow at the cemetery gates at twilight. No application, no questions, just be there. Raven's Hollow lay 15 miles past evening shade, down a chain of narrowing red dirt tracks, swallowed by pine so dense the sun died early. I knew these woods the way some people know their own scars. Grew up fishing the spring river, hunting deer in thickets just like these, but I'd never once come to this burying ground. Locals use the Baptist plots in town or the tidy memorial garden by the highway. This place belonged to older stories. The road bent sharp, and I stood on the brakes harder than I meant to. My old Chevy spit a plume of rust-colored dust that hung in the dead still air. The cemetery hit me all at once. Older than old. Wrought iron gates rose 10 feet or higher, once elegant, now twisted into shapes that looked like agony, frozen mid-scream. Rust bled across everything, turning the metal the same bruised orange as the dying light leaking through the trees. Past the gates, crooked stones marched back beneath ancient oaks, whose limbs locked together into a roof thick enough to fake midnight at 5 p.m. A lone figure waited just inside. Even from the cab, I could tell something wasn't right about him. I cut the engine. The evening held its breath. No birds, no breeze, just the lazy tick of cooling metal. "You Arlo Finch?" the man rasped. Same voice from the phone. "That's me." I stepped out, boots crunching gravel. Up close, Jasper Crow looked carved from driftwood and regret. 60 or 80, impossible to guess. Skin pulled tight over high bones, eyes the washed-out blue of winter sky, flicking everywhere at once. Me, the graves, the dark behind me, back again. He wore canvas pants gone soft with age, and a flannel shirt older than I was. His hands shook while he worked a heavy ring of keys from his pocket. Ever kept watch before? I follow directions. I'm handy. I need the money. He nodded like that was the only answer that ever mattered. $200 a week. Cash, Friday to Friday. 6 nights, midnight till dawn. 1 night off, your pick. 200 wasn't much, but it beat 0. What exactly am I watching for? Walk the roads. Make sure nobody messes around. Keep things peaceful. His eyes slid past me again, chasing something I couldn't see. Shed in the middle's yours. Cot, heater, bathroom. Stay inside unless something needs handling. Handling what? For the first time, he looked straight at me, and ice crawled down my back. That's what the rules are for. He unlocked the gates. They screamed open like something dying, scattering crows from the oaks, and waved me through. The temperature dropped 10 degrees the second we crossed the threshold. I saw my breath. The place was bigger than it had any right to be. Stones leaned drunk, half sunk into red clay, names sanded away by a century of rain. Most markers clustered around 1878. "Yellow fever," Jasper muttered, following my stare. "Summer of 78. Took over 100 in 3 weeks. Most of them ended here. We passed older sections, each one more neglected than the last, until we reached a clearing near the heart of the graveyard. A small shed waited, once white, now the color of old bone. 50 yards beyond stood a mausoleum that made every other structure look like a child's drawing. 20 feet of blackened limestone, iron door carved with shapes I couldn't quite make out in the failing light. No name, no dates, just weight. Heavy, ancient, patient. Jasper stared at it like it stared back. His trembling stopped. His fists clenched instead. "What is that thing?" I asked. "Section 1, he said, voice flat. "Oldest part. Stay clear of it." "Why?" "Because the rules say so." Inside the shed, cot, sleeping bag, space heater that smelled of kerosene, a bathroom barely worthy of the name, a desk holding a flashlight and a clipboard. Jasper lifted a single sheet of paper from the desk. The typing looked like it came from a machine older than sin. "These are the rules," he said. "Every night, no exceptions." He handed it over. "Raven's Hollow Graveyard. Night Watchman Rules. 1. Between 2 and 2:30 a.m., you may hear bluegrass from Section 3. Ignore it. Do not investigate. Keep the shed door shut. 2. If wildflowers appear on the Holloway Table Tomb, Section 4 SE corner, burn them at once. Kerosene and matches in the drawer. Every petal to ash. 3. The receiving vault in Section 5 stays locked. Check at 4 a.m. If the door stands open, close it and return here immediately. 4. 2:45 to 3:15 a.m. is the silent hour. Stay inside. Do not answer any voice calling your name, even if it sounds like someone you know. 5. If anyone asks for directions on the grounds, do not speak. Do not look them in the eye. Walk away. 6. Should fog rise from the river along Section 6, remain indoors until it lifts. Do not let it touch you. I read it twice. This a joke? You think I look like I'm laughing? He looked 20 years closer to the grave. What happens if I break one? Most bosses threaten to dock pay. Jasper just fixed me with those restless, pale eyes and said, "You'll wake it, and it's starving." Wake what? I started to ask, but he was already walking away. Tomorrow night, midnight, don't be late. He paused in the doorway, backlit by deepening dusk. Arlo, when you see something you can't explain, remember the rules are the only thing keeping you breathing. Then he was gone, hurrying down the path like the dark had teeth. I looked at the paper again. In different ink, scrawled at the bottom in frantic handwriting, "They're not ghosts." It is one thing wearing many faces. The first 3 nights passed quiet. I let myself in with the key Jasper gave me, settled in the shed, walked my rounds at 2 and 4, flashlight carving tunnels through black so thick it felt solid. Nothing but stones and shadows. By night 3, I almost believed the rules were just hill country superstition, the kind that grows on lonely places like mold. Night 4 changed my mind. I was half dozing when the alarm buzzed at 1:55. Time for rounds. I pulled on boots, grabbed the light, stepped outside. The air had teeth now. My beam barely reached 20 feet. Sections 2 and 4 were empty. I turned towards Section 3. At 2:17, the music started. Bluegrass, real as Sunday supper. Fiddle crying, banjo rolling, guitar running underneath like a heartbeat. Old tune, right on the edge of memory. It floated from the oaks in Section 3. Rule 1, do not acknowledge, do not investigate. I froze, stood in the dark, light pointed at my boots, trying to keep my breathing steady while that impossible band played on. Beautiful and wrong, too clean, like it had been practiced for 100 years and would be practiced 100 more. Then I saw them, shapes gliding between the stones, a dozen, maybe more, not walking, drifting, swaying in perfect time with the music, like a dance nobody taught them. My brain offered excuses, tricks of light, exhaustion, swamp gas, none of them fit. I should have turned away. Instead, I stared. Among the dancers, one figure stood perfectly still, taller, 7 feet at least. Posture all wrong, too upright, too stiff. It faced me. No features I could make out, just darkness where a face should be. The music played, the dancers moved. The tall thing watched. My hand tightened on the flashlight. Every instinct screamed to raise the beam to see what it really was. Rule 1 echoed, do not acknowledge. I forced myself to turn, walked back to the shed and measured steps, feeling those hollow eyes burn holes in my spine the whole way. The music stopped dead at 2:30, leaving a silence that hurt my ears. I didn't sleep again that night. Next evening, I found the kerosene and matches right where he said. Walked to Section 4. The Holloway Table Tomb, simple stone slab, waist high, 1878 dates carved deep, growing straight from a crack in the center, white wildflowers, delicate, sweet smelling. Too sweet, like funeral lilies left too long. They hadn't been there yesterday. I soaked them, struck a match. The flames came up green, sick, glowing green. Smoke smelled of lightning and wet graves. As they burned, the temperature plummeted. Something vast turned its attention my way, like a sleeper cracking one eye to see what scratched at the lid of its coffin. My hands shook all the way back to the shed. 6th night, I worked up nerve to walk past the big unmarked mausoleum. Not close, just close enough to see the iron door by flashlight. Relief carvings, a procession of bowed figures marching toward something, leading them, taller than the rest. A man in an old-fashioned suit, face turned full to the viewer, grinning, mouth stretched impossible wide, too many teeth. I never went near it again. By the end of week 1, I knew the rules weren't folklore. They were survival. Whatever lived here wasn't a haunt in the usual sense. No lost souls with unfinished business. There was only the thing that wore them, that waited in fog and music and the spaces between stones. Seventh night, during the silent hour, I heard my mother call my name from outside. She'd been dead 3 years. I stayed inside. I understood then what the handwritten note meant. This wasn't a haunted graveyard. This was a pantry, and something underneath it was dreaming of waking up hungry. After that, I quit sleeping daytime. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the tall, still figure, smelled ozone from burning flowers, felt that crushing weight of attention. My aunt noticed the shadows under my eyes, but never asked. Around here, people learn young not to pry about graveyard work. I kept showing up, needed the cash. And the stubborn streak that had kept me alive through everything else refused to let fear run me off $200 a week. As long as I followed the rules, I told myself, I was safe. I was wrong. 11th night, Tuesday, everything normal until 2:47 a.m. Rounds done, receiving vault locked, fresh flowers burned green. I was settled in for the silent hour with coffee and a book I wasn't reading when I heard my father outside. Arlo, son, you in there? Dad died 5 years back. Heart attack behind the wheel somewhere in Oklahoma. Buried in town, 15 miles away. Arlo, I need help. I'm lost. Exact voice, the smoker's rasp, the faint drawl he never shook. Please, son, it's dark. I'm scared. Dad never admitted fear once in his life. My hand was on the door handle before my brain caught up. Rule 4 screamed inside my skull. I opened the door anyway. The darkness had texture, like black wool soaked in water. My flashlight barely cut it. 20 feet away stood 3 figures. Dad, Mom, Uncle Joe, dead of fever when I was 6. Their faces were wrong, smudged, mouths moving in perfect loops. Arlo, help me. I'm lost, I'm scared. Arlo, help me. I'm lost, I'm scared. No blinking, no breathing, broken recordings. A trap built by something that had studied grief but never felt it. I backed inside, slammed the door, locked it. Heart trying to hammer its way out of my chest. I'd broken Rule 4. It learned what bait would make me open the door. 3 nights later, the fog came. I was on 2 a.m. rounds when it rolled in from the riverside. Thick, deliberate, moving like it had purpose. It smelled ancient and wet. Rule 6, stay inside. I turned back and saw him. A man in an old-fashioned black suit standing at the edge of Section 3, just inside the fog. Back to me, perfectly still. Excuse me, he called without turning, voice flat as pond ice. Could you point me toward the Sykes plot? Rule 5, do not answer. Do not make eye contact. Walk away. I walked. Looked back once. His head had turned 180 degrees on a neck that shouldn't bend that way, facing me while his body still pointed forward. Mouth split into a grin too wide, showing cracked gray teeth like broken tombstones. The smile hadn't been there before. I ran, slammed the shed door, leaned against it, gasping. Fog pressed the windows like a living thing. I stayed inside until sunrise. Should have quit then. But desperation is stronger than sense, and 2 weeks' pay was already burning a hole in my pocket toward first and last on a new place. So I kept coming back. 17th night, 3:45 a.m., the music returned. Not from Section 3 this time, but everywhere, inside my skull. Singing now, layered voices that hurt to hear. I looked out the window. The procession came through the fog. Men, women, children in 1800s clothes, moving in perfect, jerky unison like marionettes worked by a drunk. Moonlight showed blank faces, skin tight over bone, eyes rolled white. Leading them, the grinning thing. 7 feet of thin wrongness in a rotting suit, skin like old paper over sharp bone, empty sockets that saw everything, and the smile, fixed, carved, eternal. They stopped in front of the shed. Every corpse turned to me at once. The tall thing raised one long arm and pointed straight at me. A woman in a moldy dress stepped forward. Her mouth opened too wide. Dozens of voices spilled out in perfect chorus. He has chosen you. The vessel must be filled. The body is prepared. The soul is marked. When the time comes, you will open the door and walk into the tomb, and he will wear you like a suit of flesh, and through you walk the world again. I understood then. The rules weren't protection, they were seasoning. Every night I followed them. I tenderized myself for the feast. The procession left as suddenly as it came, the tall thing walking backward into the fog, grin never wavering. I sat in that shed until sunrise, knowing I would die here, unless I found a way to kill what lived beneath these stones. I didn't show up the next 2 nights, called in sick. technically true. Third day, Jasper came to my aunt's house. Looked like death warmed over, hands trembling so bad he could barely hold the coffee she poured him. "We gotta talk," he said. "Not here." We drove to the old Spring River Bridge. Rust and silence in dark water below. "You saw it," he said, not a question. "The procession, the grinning thing, all of it." He drank from a flask. "How long you been working?" 3 weeks. He laughed, a sound like breaking sticks. "Took me 2 months to see the full show. You must be exactly what it wants." "What the hell is it?" "Old," he said. "Older than scripture around here. Parasite. Feeds on grief, loneliness, loss. Yellow fever summer gave it a banquet. Over 100 dead in 3 weeks. Bodies stacked like firewood in the receiving vault till they could dig graves. All that sorrow in one place woke it up. Or called it. Don't matter which. It moved into the corpses. Wears them like coats. The rules were never to keep you safe. They keep it calm while it gets you ready. The caretaker who follows them night after night becomes the perfect vessel. Living flesh it can walk around in. He finally met my eyes. Guilt raw across his face. I was supposed to be the vessel. I ran. Then it needed somebody with roots here. Somebody it could wear proper. "I gave you to it, Arlo. I'm sorry." I wanted to kill him. Instead I asked, "How do we stop it?" "You can't. Only way is to put it back to sleep permanent, and nobody knows how." That night I went back, not to work, to look. Climbed the fence. The place felt confused, like a spider that lost track of a fly. Made my way to the receiving vault in Section 5. The door stood open. Inside, the room stretched wrong, bigger than physics allowed. Coffins in a spiral, all pointing inward. Center of the floor, a dark stain pulsing like a heart. Against the far wall, one coffin stood apart. New pine, brass plate gleaming. Arlo Finch empty, waiting. I ran. Next morning I went to Reverend Miller, oldest preacher in Evening Shade. Told him everything. When I finished, he was quiet a long while. "My granddaddy was a boy in '78, he said. Told me when the dying got bad, the music stopped. Nobody played fiddle or sang hymns while death walked the streets. And that's when people started seeing the smiling man. Music. The fake bluegrass wasn't random. In the old days, music was armor. Hymns, spirituals, reels. Warded evil. If the thing feared real music played with heart. Reverend Miller knew a man. Caleb Boone ran a bluegrass outfit out of an old barn. We found him teaching a kid proper bow hold. I told my story again. Caleb listened, fingers moving over invisible strings. "You want me to play the devil out of a graveyard with a fiddle?" "Pretty much." He grinned like a man who'd waited his whole life for crazy. "Let's see it first." We went at 2:30 a.m. The false music started right on cue. Then the procession. Then the tall, grinning thing. Caleb went white, but he lifted his fiddle and played, leaning on the everlasting arms like the hounds of hell were on his heels. The corpses jerked and recoiled. The grinning thing took one step back, then another. It hated the real music. We had a weapon. 2 weeks later, All Saints' Day, we came back with over 100 people. Bluegrass pickers, church choirs, gospel singers, anybody who could carry a tune or a prayer. We ringed the cemetery with sound. At 2 p.m. we began. Not gentle hymns, war music. The ground shook. The dead poured from the graves, snarling, violent puppets. But the music held them back, burned them where they touched the wall of sound. Then the grinning thing manifested, 30 feet tall, flickering, vast. It walked straight through the barrier toward me. I stood my ground. Caleb switched to Ain't No Grave, and every musician followed. The whole graveyard roared with defiance. Reverend Miller shouted scripture like artillery. I looked into those hollow sockets and said, "I refuse you." The smile cracked. The thing screamed without sound. The music dragged it backward into the receiving vault. The iron door slammed shut like the lid of the world. The corpses collapsed, finally at peace, dissolving into mist. Silence fell, sweet and total. We didn't kill it. We just locked the cage again. Every All Saints' Day now, we come back. Musicians, singers, believers from 3 states. We fill Raven's Hollow with real music, real faith, real living noise. We call it the warding. The receiving vault is sealed in concrete and iron. The graveyard is quiet, but sometimes when the wind moves through the oaks just right, I still hear that fixed, patient smile waiting beneath the ground. We didn't destroy the monster. We just made sure the lock still holds. For now, That's enough.